go take care of a customer. I'll be right back.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. And why don't we just go around and just introduce ourselves and where we're from. So I'm John Michael Dumais from Keene. Johanna?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
Who are you and where are you from?
Me?
Yes.
I'm from Keene.
Okay.
I live on South Leakin Street in Keene.
Okay, and you have a show on Cheshire TV?
I do. I have a
Good.
show on Cheshire TV with Jim Smart.
You too.
It's called Tip of the Iceberg, where we discuss all kinds of topics that nobody wants to talk about.
Oh, good. Gerhard.
I'm also from Keene and also doing a show on Cheshire TV called View from Here. And the last one we had was Dr. Leonard Weldon, retired dental surgeon, semi-retired. We also illuminating things that do not get a hearing elsewhere.
Good. We have some movers and shakers. Frank and Shoshana.
Yes, hi, Frank and Shoshana Plasko. We're from Bedford. We don't have a show yet.
Well, you do have one, sort of, right?
We have a website. It's called livefreeorcomply.com, and it's just a little sort of store where we came up with the little sentiment of live free or comply ? And we got stickers and signs, and we just kind of been peppering the state with them, so that just gives people pause to think.
Excellent. And Marcus, you'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yep. Marcus Stewart Vanini. I live in Alstead. As far as no sites or shows since the scandemic started, I've done a lot of sort of that peppering. Posters, stickers, pretty much anything that was logical was taken down right away. So I had a campaign going for a while with Masked Lives Matter. And then it would give links to websites that would actually give you information. So
Excellent.
those didn't get taken down. It was funny.
Those did not get taken down?
Yeah. It was like, it was kind of a parody, right? Masked Lives Matter. Go to these websites and get a free kit. And it would be like Corbett Report or, things
Great.
like that would actually.
Good, good.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
And David.
I'm Dave Wilson from Manchester. Just a concerned citizen, personal. I own my own business, and we go into another lockdown, and I'm done. So, just extremely concerned about all civil liberties and all of this. So,
Do you mind saying what kind of business you've got?
I'm sorry.
Do you mind saying what kind of business you
Oh
run?
yeah, I'm a personal trainer, which is a good field to be in right now. But I've been doing it for 20 years, and I had a base and relied on no advertising anymore because I've been doing it so long. So, and I was never good at it to begin with, at the advertising. And so now that I lost a handful, and then I work with a lot of elderly people and people who are very overweight, and a lot of them don't want anybody knowing they're training, that they're out of the house and doing things. And so there's no more word of mouth, and so I'm not recouping any of the losses that I had when this all first started. So it's been tough and frustrating.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And unless we make this very personal, like your story, I think we're not going to have the kind of impacts that we need to have. But
Yeah.
And I want to say hello to everyone else that's a guest here. I see a bunch of guests, quote unquote guests, members, however you want to call yourself. If you want to be on camera, just go ahead and say so in the chat, and one of us will get to you and promote you to the front of the store.
And we can also promote you to being able to speak and not be seen if that appeals to you or suits you better. Yeah.
And so what I'm going to suggest in the meantime is for folks to, just one sec here.
Mute when we're not talking.
There we go. No, yeah, to mute when we're not talking. And what I basically want to do is I want to run through some data here this morning and then leave time for questions. I'm going to run through pretty quickly because there's a few things I would like to touch on and things that you may all be aware of, but things I think are really important for us to be knowing about right now. And let's see here. I wanted to talk about a few different things. One was the case demic. One was the, certainly the situation here in New Hampshire, where we stand right now in terms of, our health situation in light of what the governor just did. And, just sort of being prepared, further prepared to have the discussions with people. So let me just move through a few things quickly. And then what I'll do is, first I'm going to deal with our situation in New Hampshire. I'm going to stop and then we'll take comments and questions from people, then move on to the next topic. So it's going to be a little different than sort of the free-floating, laissez-faire kind of conversation we've had recently, just because I just want to try this and just bear with me here. If you hate it, you can tell me about it. But anyways, I'm going to share my screen. Where are we here? I have a lot of screens open, so they're like, which one do you want to share, man? All right, share. So you should be seeing a screen here. What about New Hampshire? Is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
All right. If you mute yourself, I can't hear you saying yes. Somebody should keep their microphone on. Okay, good. So here we're just looking at deaths per day over time. I downloaded this morning. So obviously in May we had we're talking about, we never got above 10 deaths per day. And now we're at about 2 deaths per day. It goes down to 1. You can see it goes down. It was down in 0 range in different parts of September. Of course, this is what we're being told are COVID deaths. And it's not clear, even in New Hampshire, whether they're with COVID, from COVID, but presumably anybody who's going into the hospital now gets tested. And if they and that's another whole issue that we'll get into, as you probably know, if they get tested and show positive for COVID and they die, are they being added to this list? That's a question. The trend for hospitalizations, again, you can see where we are right here. Where we had a bump up in late October, and now we're headed back down. And this is interesting because it matches what we're seeing in some European countries in terms of, well, actually, I don't know if you can see this. That's not going to show it to me, is it? No. One sec. I'm going to share a different screen here. To stop sharing that one. So now we're looking at, this is the confirmed cases per million. You can see that there was this same thing we saw here in New Hampshire and a lot of other, we're looking at mostly northern climate type of curves right now. And we're seeing this, I think we can sort of ignore this because people were not being tested. This is of course part of the case demic. So it's hard to really know how to rely on these numbers, but if we're looking at them as an overall thing, you see this is Switzerland, Poland, Czech Republic, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Ireland, and you're seeing that there's this curve in all of the countries that goes up towards the end of September and now is coming down at the end of November. That's I think an important piece to be thinking about as we look about how this is actually impacting different countries and ours as well. Let me just go back to where we were before. So that's hospitalizations. If we're looking at ICU admits, so we're showing the same bump up here. We've had, from the end of September, it's been up and down, but now we're headed back down again. And this is not very many here. We're talking about a few people. Total hospitalization is about 116 right now for COVID and in New Hampshire. And then we've got this, I'm sure you've seen this. I haven't updated this. recently, but this shows you what we're seeing in most other states. Most of you are going to be aware of this. Just that, you know, we had the curves, masking, staying at home for the most part, didn't do much. There's certainly evidence that what the lockdown does mean is to push the deaths off. So you end up getting a longer declination of the curve instead of it going up and down more rapidly, like you saw in Sweden. You see these sort of bump ups because people are not exercising they weren't getting out in the sun, they weren't exercising their immune system, and so it's just deaths deferred is all you're getting when you're doing that, of course. So right here you could see August 13th, you know, Executive Order 65, you know, the masking thing, and around the same time, I know here in Keene, the ordinance was passed, and this is despite the death curves going way down. And the question we need to ask people, I think, is what are we expected? How are we expected to ever come out of restrictions if restrictions begin at the bottom of the curve? Because by definition, going into the fall and winter, we know that the respiratory deaths, they go up. If it's going to be blamed on COVID, there's never a time that you can come out if you're starting at the bottom, because you can always claim, if you're a government official, well, you know, look, it's getting worse. And of course, there's no logic in that, but that's what they're saying. So that's my little initial first take here this morning on where we are in New Hampshire. And does anybody have a comment?
What they're saying in the media is just the opposite. They're saying this is just the beginning of the new curve. That's what I take from this is the incredible difference between what you're showing us and what they are saying is happening.
I think it's all bullocks. And I think a physician friend of mine in Walpole, New Hampshire, educated me a few weeks ago that if you take the 5-year average of deaths from 2015 to 2019, it's about 7,800 a day in America. We have 500 less deaths per day on average this year.
Yeah.
And that same physician's told me of multiple deaths coded as COVID privately. And I have my father-in-law's business. He has 2 customers who died of terminal cancer, multiple years. And now the insurance company, magically, they started putting in all these pandemic exceptions years ago. So they're also trying to screw people there.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, one of our biggest goals here is not only to provide this education. I mean, that's huge, because what we're being told, like John Michael was saying, all right, well, if you have basically nothing and you're in the flu season, oh, it's going up. Yeah, but you're starting from down. You're starting from like nothing. But, you know, they say this so vociferously and so strongly all the time, and repeat. So that's why I'm so glad we're doing this, because we have to be a voice of the truth. You know, what really is happening. And we're using different venues to do that. And this is certainly one of them. And yeah, it's.
I have.
Brenna?
Oh,
Unmute yourself, Brenna.
Brenna, you need to
You have
unmute
to
your
unmute
microphone.
yourself.
okay.
Hello, everyone. I am a patient of Rebecca's for my daughter Cadence, who is currently being treated for leukemia. She's 14 now. She was diagnosed at age 12. I came into Rebecca's office when my daughter began treatments, and I decided to use both alternative methods along with the treatment that's provided up at Dartmouth, that's Western medicine. And Cadence has 1 more month of treatments. It's been 2.5 years that she's been in treatments. It was difficult for me to make this decision. However, what I do want you to know is that I needed to research on this COVID thing because Cadence's immune system is compromised. So I did so last April. And I went into the CDC of the different countries. South Korea has a CDC, Italy has a CDC. What I did find, since they had been battling this for 6 months, there was already an indication there that school children are not a threat to the population and that they did not spread it. So I was aware of this a long time ago. In addition, Liam and I both were sick with all the symptoms of COVID last February. And I didn't know that it was even in the US. So we had our fever and I was really tired. Liam was really tired. Cadence under treatment got no symptoms whatsoever. So lasted 3 or 4 days. And then I figured a few months later, oh yeah, we probably had COVID. So that's our personal experience. And besides what you were all talking about, I think we could win this argument by agreeing that some people are vulnerable and should be helped to isolate and be masked. But we don't have the voice of the people who are paying the price. And this is a cost versus benefit issue. The cost is mostly on the backs of the children of this country, and they're not able to speak. What is their experience? How are they suffering? And the public doesn't know the personal experience. So Liam wrote some letters to the editors of Shopper News and Keene Sentinel, but they haven't been published. And he put his age down. Liam, come on, your turn to speak. So if you want the general public to agree with you, it is important to agree that they have an argument as far as older people go, and they are voters and they're over the age of 18. But to argue on behalf of the children who are being harmed is not, it's not fair and it's not right. So I want Liam to tell you his experience with masking.
I don't know how I'm going to start. Well, I mean, I go to high school and every day the rule is you have to wear a mask inside and it's getting colder outside and I really have a hard time breathing. And it's just like during the day, sometimes like I have such a hard time where I just take it off my nose. And teachers are always like, oh, put it above your nose, put the mask above your nose. And I literally tell them, I can't breathe in these things. And they're like, well, it's just the school rules. You just gotta follow them. And it's really ruining my life because a couple weeks ago, I got this huge cyst or like irritation right here because of the mask rubbing against my face. And it went away because we went with some doctors from Dartmouth Hitchcock and they told me how I can make it go away. And
We had to soak it.
And yeah, like Mom said, I wrote the Keene Sentinel and the Shoppers News. Keene Sentinel, I wrote about how it's really not healthy to make kids wear masks. And I also said that, I don't know if you guys know this, but at Keene High School, they make the kids run around in gym with a mask on. They can't take it off.
For an hour and a half.
And I'm like, how can you do this? They're gonna pass out. they're gonna fall on the floor and they're gonna drop dead. And the teachers just don't give a crap. They say, oh, we gotta wear that. I've heard it. People are gonna pass out on the floor. And then people are gonna be like, oh no. And that's what I wrote to the Keene Sentinel. And then the Shoppers News, I wrote back to that guy, Charles Lewis, who had no evidence that masks were working. And I said, first of all, Wikipedia is the most unreliable source on the internet. People can go on it whenever they want and edit it. They can do whatever they want. And he believes all that. And he says, oh, there's so many deaths. Oh, there's so many this and that. But he literally did not mention children. If you read his letter, he did not mention any children, which clearly shows he did not read it.
Or care.
And he's like, but it's just safe for our society. Check out the Wikipedia. I'm like, no, Wikipedia is the worst website you could do. And he's like, I want Rise Up New Hampshire to owe an apology. That's what he said in the newspaper, and he's trying to get it out of the newspaper. Well, I wrote back to him, and I wrote that it's the Shopper News. It's the First Amendment right, the freedom of press. He can't make the newspaper take out something that was put in the newspaper, and so he has no right. He has no right whatsoever to complain and say, take this out of the newspaper. He has no right to do that. And that's all I want to say. You can talk about.
These kids are suffering.
Talk about Ellen.
Very well said, Liam. And you represent so many, and it's a very important voice because the kids aren't able, they don't have forums where they can do this. And we need to listen and listen. I can't imagine what these kids are and the thing is, it's based on nothing solid. It's based on no science. And even Brenna, you were talking about the elderly population. The elderly population has a very good track record. We have that graph, actually, John Michael, I think it was in the graph pages you were showing. But 94 point above age 70, 94 point something recoverable from COVID. So we're not even talking about this being a huge threat to the elderly. And what is killing the elderly is solitary confinement, separation from their family, poor care in facilities as documented. I mean, I have people inside facilities like that who work there and say these people are not getting good care, they're being drugged. And there are no family members to account to because you're not able to come in and visit your loved ones. So this is not about care for our older population. Yeah, so it's
I don't know if the CDC death rates have been updated, but the September 10th listing was like 0.0002% for people 80 and older. I mean, you're more likely to die in a car accident.
yeah.
Right.
And there was documentation between the FDA and the CDC, where the CDC actually in writing in one of the reports admitted, we don't have any virus samples to provide you for these tests because there's never been a virus isolated. It's insanity. Yep. But I've had a friend in touch with the head of New Hampshire Health Department, the governor's office, state attorney general. He's working very closely, provides all this information. And he emailed me last week. He's like, there's just something else behind it. I don't know whether it's money, people are afraid of being suicided, losing their job, but like logical, smart people in power will not even look or acknowledge. I mean, I guess the head of the health department did say the PCR tests are bunk, but that's as far as he's managed to make it. And he's like full time on this at the highest levels in the state.
Well, that's a beginning for us as far as getting a crack in the, in the wall of the unceasing narrative. And to that end, just let me mention here, just so folks can see it, and also folks can, who watch the video later, can also see it. We started a petition. We all know the problems with PCR tests. Gerhard, you want to talk a little bit about the petition letter that you wrote, just a couple of minutes on why you thought that that was so important and what you think people should know about it? You'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Basically, what we have with that petition, it's a brief one, is using the authorities that we are being pointed to all the time as telling us what the truth is. Their own statements on the PCR tests actually should blow a big hole into all of these reported cases, rising cases, newspaper after newspaper, day after day, drives home. So that is what is happening. And I have somebody at the door. I'm going to leave it here for the moment and go back to you, John Michael.
Okay,
I can kind of speak to that.
please do. Yeah.
So the PCR test, the reverse transcription PCR test, as all of you know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but just to emphasize the point is that this virus has never been isolated, COVID-19, and identified. The PCR test goes back decades, and it was developed to be a research tool, not to detect infectious disease. And so it picks up different changes in RNA. Gerhard was saying DNA, and I guess that's the connection there, but it picks up changes that are seen for, and they can be for a variety of reasons. And so as many times as you magnify that and amplify that test, eventually everybody is going to have something, whether they had the corona, common cold at some point in time, or maybe, in my opinion, they just had their flu shot, or they had, some of these vaccinations that people routinely get at this time of year. They're going to show changes, and they're going to be told they have a positive COVID-19 test. And that's simply, the test is completely unreliable. It doesn't really tell you anything specific. And it's being used, again, to make people feel fearful and that they have to obey these draconian measures and just stay under in obedience. And so that's super important for people to know and to get that word out there.
Can I ask a question, John Michael? Just on a different, see if this group, from my correspondence with you, I was kicked out of a restaurant I frequent in Walpole, New Hampshire, Burdick's, on Friday. It seems like they'd kind of were waiting for the mandate, and I'm now looking at legal action, health department action, notice of filing suit, like a lot of things. But in the interim, and I'm doing this based on principle. I haven't worn a mask once. I'm doing my homework. I'll never support them again, regardless of the outcome. But do you guys have a list of places that are rational? So like we could start to circulate that amongst people just for I don't really fear going into places, but my kids don't like that anxiety. A lot of smaller women don't want to do that alone. To me, we should be like building and supporting a community of places that don't terrorize customers.
The market in Stoddard is unmasked. The market.
Have you been there since the governor's latest? Good.
Yes.
So to answer your question, Marcus, we don't have a list that I know of, but I think it's a great idea. So what I would like to have people do is to write me admin@riseupnh.org and with your list basically, and what I'll do is I'll start a page on the site for mask friendly or face friendly, I guess we should say, face friendly businesses. And in addition, I think maybe we need to do some further outreach to businesses which would be to help, educate them as to their rights and what they're, what they really are able to do in face of these kinds of things, which are, in the case of some of the people here, are preventing them from actually running their business. But I'm sure half the businesses are like, we don't really want to do this, but we're being forced to do this. Push is going to come to shove. And, there are some different arguments that have been made. The American with Disabilities Act, religious exemption, just generalized personal health exemption from doctors, but it's not adequate. I think there's going to be no substitute for people showing up en masse wherever we want to be able to make that impact. To that end, I think there has been some discussion about doing mask disobedience if on a per store basis. And so that's something I think we need to talk a little bit more about. We should do it, not really talk about it, but I'm open to having some conversation around that. The idea would be, to have at least a dozen of us show up without masks and have a couple of us be ready to educate while the people go around the store without masks. And everyone should be ready to educate. Not everyone's going to want to do that, but we have materials. We can design better materials. Go ahead, Frank.
So Jen in the Q&A said that Market Basket supposedly doesn't harass, is something that's said. So thanks for that, Jen. I also wanted to say, this is the thing that really bothers me, and this has been going on for a long time. I mean, this type of control over our medical freedom has been going on for decades and decades, and it just keeps getting worse. But when you look at vaccination, and that you have to have a religious exemption or a medical exemption, that should never have been the case. We don't want to find loopholes and say that my doctor said I can't wear a mask or this. We need to say, I am not wearing a mask because I choose not to wear a mask. I'm not getting vaccinated because I choose not to get vaccinated, and it's nobody's business why. I'm not getting vaccinated or I'm not having my children vaccinated. What's that?
About vaccines, I just want you to know that there is legislation that was just put forth to make all of the opt-out electives in schools for vaccination. Anything that has a vaccine mandate is going to be switched, if it's passed, and flipped to opt-in. So you will no longer have to opt out of any of these vaccination programs. You can electively opt in, but they won't be thrust upon you. And if you don't opt out,
What?
do it. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've died and gone to heaven. Are you serious?
Well,
This in New Hampshire, Frank, or where?
It's been put forward. We don't know if it's going to be passed yet. We'll know probably in February. And a couple other things I'd like to speak to real quickly as far as businesses and stores are concerned. Hannaford's in Bedford has not harassed me about not wearing a mask. Now, I don't know that's just a virtue of me being me, or if they just don't bother people wearing masks, but I've never worn one there once. I only wear masks when I go into a private establishment that is, something that can be attacked via fines, and fines are coming, and they're coming for people as well. We know this firsthand, that they are going to start issuing fines for people in violation. And in addition to that list of businesses, restaurants, whatever they may be, I think we should also have a list of businesses that we know that have been fined that could use our support. And we happen to know of a local business in Bedford, and they were fined, and then they were issued a $500 fine, and then they're issued fines $2,000 per day for every day of non-compliance. And once that word got out into the community, they had a ton of support from people. So there are people out there who feel that this is wrong. Not everybody is willing to take a full, open stance on this and fight. But a lot of people, the more we resist, the more we stand up, the more people who will join us. And the more people like David, who have their own businesses that are completely under siege by this and are facing, horrible outcome from this. Until we stand up and do resist and do show the governing bodies that we're not going to comply, we're not going to pay these fines, and we're going to support each other, we need to grow that support base so that everyone can, benefit from the fight.
There's some good news, in one sense, because the mandate itself, Article 6, actually gives you an out, which is a catch-all out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the other Frank Blasco. On Friday, my friend spoke to the head of the Liquor Commission and the state attorney general. And they said there was no enforcement unless it was like in the case of a restaurant not having their staff members wear masks. They said there was no enforcement component or fines. I'm kind of curious. That sounds contradictory to what they said.
Well, obviously, we can't trust what they say. They're full of shit on all counts,
True.
So the business we know of that was fined was the owners and employees were not wearing masks. So that maybe that does speak to what you had said. But we were asked to leave the New Hampshire liquor outlet when we stopped to buy wine on Saturday, and they
Kicked us out.
they
wouldn't serve us.
They wouldn't serve us, and so we.
And that's isn't that a
That's a state liquor authority, and
Right.
the woman said that her boss told her that she cannot serve us unless we put on masks, and we refused, and we left.
Right. We also have a town rep who told us that the fines are coming for individuals. Which is unfortunate, but she's also the one that told us about the legislation that has been put forth, which is very hopeful. We're also meeting with her tomorrow, so we'll be able to have a better understanding of what
Yeah, we
those
should have
bills
some
are.
updates for the next Monday Zoom meeting. But as far as attendance for anything that is any type of defiance or anything, just give me a time and a place.
I want
But
to.
the mandate itself, the 0.6 of the mandate, says explicitly that anyone who claims to have difficulty breathing is exempt. There's a period at the end of that sentence. You are not required, according to the governor's mandate, to produce any documentation to support that claim. I mean, there's a period at the end of that sentence. So no fines pursuant to that mandate, which is not law, has not been passed by any legislature, can be enforced. So if they go to find an individual and the individual simply says, according to governor's mandate, Article 6, I have difficulty breathing, I'm not required to produce any evidence of that. Therefore, it cannot be applied. I'm not saying we should just, enjoy the fact that he wrote that language into the mandate, but it is there specifically for that purpose. So if the push comes to shove, you just point to that and say, I have difficulty breathing. And yet when you cover your mouth and your nose, you're not going to breathe the same way as when you're not covering your mouth and your nose.
I was armed to use that myself, and I do actually have claustrophobia and anxiety, and tried in a store that I'm trying to support, local small guy, and they just wanted me to wear a mask, and I had to leave. So anyway, that was the only time I ever wore a mask. But I was just told from my brother-in-law that he used that in Article 6 at Lowe's and one of the Walmarts. I didn't get which one, and they both still turned him away. They had an officer at the door, and they said, well, we're reserving the right not to as a business, not to honor that part of it. So
well, they have to accommodate you then under the ADA. If you disclaim a disability, then they have to say, well, you can wait curbside. What would you like? We'll get it for you. We'll bring it. I mean, some kind of alternative would be. Look, I went out to dinner with Frank Blasco here on the call the other day. I just want to offer this anecdote because, and I'm not to be rude, but we have to stop being fucking nice about this. I don't wear masks typically. I did here because I felt it important. I wanted to sit and meet with Frank. I didn't want to have to get into an argument with anybody. I walk in with my bandana. As I walk in, I stop at the receptionist desk. There's a few different people there, a manager there. My bandana had slipped under my nose, and she looks at me and she tucks on her mask and like to put it over your nose, and I did. And we sat down, of course, in our safe zone because, it's a smart virus. When you're seated, it can't hurt you.
Yeah.
And I looked over, and within 10 minutes, there were 3 fucking employees and someone else who had come in from the outside standing at that reception desk without any masks on their faces. And I was outraged. I didn't show it, but that's humiliating. I mean, who are these people to treat us this way? Don't give me this shit. You're either afraid of this fucking virus or you're not afraid of it. It's either a real thing or it's not a real thing. You don't enforce and bully people just because you have some iota of power for 3 seconds and you think you get to just boss people around. And the only time I've seen any pushback on these mandates across the country, no matter where they were, is when people started getting a little nasty about it. You can't be nice about it anymore. That has to be a common thing. It has to be a barrage of annoyance to the people who are seeking to enforce this shit, so that when they wake up in the morning, they're not going to want to do that job. And, you know, yeah, they'll bring out the cops for a couple of days, but they can't keep them there day after day after day. When they did it in Keene the last time, they got a lot of shit for it, and they went away soon enough. So you're not going to see a cop at the Walmart or a cop at the Costco every single day. So, I mean, I'm not trying to encourage people to be confrontational and, you know, fight in the alleys. Don't do that. But, you know, make it to the point where they have to earn it. If they want to enforce this, they have to earn it. They have to, their day has to be, you know, annoying to them to make this work.
You know, the liquor store the other day was the only time that we had anyone say anything. I've never had anyone say anything to me whatsoever. But you're right, Frank. We need to stand our ground on this. And you don't have to be rude, but you can't be nice. You can't be polite. You have to be strong about it. And as far as, you know, the police are concerned, if we do any kind of event or anything like that, I'm not afraid of getting arrested. I have no problem with anything, any repercussions from any of this whatsoever. So anybody needs any kind of support, you need me to come stand by you on any kind of endeavor, let me know. I'm more than happy to support with my time.
There's one thing that just came up just briefly. Somebody, it's Phyllis in the participant, said there's a New Hampshire maskless shoppers group on Facebook, which I'll find out that. And I was just thinking after listening to Frank, that we should be frank, which is to say, why don't we have a hall of shame for businesses that are, you know, not that they're kicking people out, and that, you know, going back to what you were saying, Frank Natoli, about not giving you an automatic accommodation. That's, you know, if they're not accommodating you right away, if they're just saying see you later, they should get, you know, a double shame for that, because they're not, you know, they're not really doing their job as a public facing business. And then be able to use that maybe to, you know, be able to go to a business and say, oh, by the way, did you know that you were on the Hall of Shame? And we're talking, you know, we have hundreds of people who are not going to go to your business because you're, you know, I mean, it's like, this is how it works, folks, because how else are we going to make the impact unless people are aware that it's not working?
Phyllis Brown also said, Market Basket, Whole Foods in Bedford has not harassed me. I do wear a badge that says no mask due to health condition. Laugh out loud, they think health and medical mean the same thing. Market Basket in Londonderry, she said, has not harassed her, and businesses, she comments that businesses are fearful that they will be closed down. When a Karen reports them, I think that's the biggest problem, that they're concerned for, you know, repercussions, because there are a lot of citizens out there who are very adamant about masking.
Well, this is what's keeping, I think, a lot of the businesses, you know, meek about it. It all comes down to liability. Schools, a lot of other people too, they're just afraid that people will come after them. There's a you know, total lack of self-responsibility on the part of the public, you know, or the perception of it, you know, that somebody could come back and say, I caught COVID at your store, you know, which is you know, ridiculous, of course.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Good luck trying to bring that.
Hey, it's airborne, right? The CDC finally admitted it's airborne, that it can stay up in the atmosphere for 20, 30, 40 minutes. It can travel yards and yards and yards, maybe hundreds of yards. And the idea that anything like a stupid cloth mask is doing anything. I mean, we do need to win this on multiple fronts, not just one front. It seems like every front that's available to us, we need to win it. But I'm thinking that there can be certainly an outreach to businesses in terms of having something that we can hand them and say, hey, if you're not liking this, you know, you have some rights here as well. I just want to make sure that if we're doing that, we have some basis in experience and in New Hampshire law to be able to do that. We're trying to get, was it Fojo, the lawyer who's been dealing with some of this in New Hampshire, trying to get him on here. I wrote to him too, Frank, so I haven't heard from him either. So I don't know what's going on there, but you know.
Right, right.
I like,
Gerhard?
yeah, I've been quiet for a while, and I'd like to bring in a slightly different angle. I'm not taking away anything about the discussion of masks we had had, but there is no denying that we have a really controversial area there. I just wanted to point at other tools besides the masks. The masks have to be dealt with on many levels, and most of them are not going to be easy. So I'm not taking anything away, but we have a tool in our hand that I put into a little, I don't have a shared screen, but this is a 2-page thing that can be printed on 1 page, 2-sided as a handout, or it can be posted. I hope you're all aware of pathologist Roger Hodgkinson, because what he put in a few words, it's on the internet, you can hear his words, they have been transcribed, I think is a tool that we should be using widely. And I'm intending to go to Staples. If you send me your orders, I'll pay for it, I'll pay for the postage and send it to you. How many of you want a 2-pager for posting or 1-pager 2-sided? Here are some of the remarks he is making, and I have seen this make a difference already to 2 people that I gave this who are not at all where we are, because it is kind of amazing to see a guy who is highly credentialed pathologist to come out with saying that coronavirus is the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on an unsuspecting public. And he makes amazing remarks in there about masks, about everything that is going on. He says masks are utterly useless. There's no evidence base for their effectiveness whatsoever. To hear it from somebody with his kind of credentials makes, yeah, there it is. Thank you, John Michael. And it seems to me that a handout like this, a handout and it can be a poster or a handout, could do a lot of good. My color printing is on the blink. So I'm going to go to Staples and print several hundreds of these because they could be given to people. And the few remarks he makes are incredibly hard hitting. And I believe they're another tool that we should use. Just a few days ago, here's a guy of his stature that is actually saying, this is just utterly mass hysteria. It is unwarranted. He says it should stop tomorrow. That's what I'm absolutely outraged that this has reached this level. It should all stop tomorrow, concluded Dr. Hodgkinson.
Yeah,
Man,
and
this is an important tool.
It's also on my, I just shared it. It's on my newsletter from Saturday. And you guys are looking at it now. And you can actually click on that and get the full, this was published in.
And it's interesting to note too, and you may already all know this, but the guy runs a COVID testing company. So
yeah,
it's not like he's trying to put some other person's COVID testing company out of business. I mean, literally, it's crazy.
We should do a mailing. We should get these, and we should do mailings to all of our representatives, to the heads of schools, anyone that has anything to do with any kind of local or bigger entity in government, anything with local health. We should just do a mass mailing, and we should not stop. We should just inundate them with them, bury them.
Here, yes.
Yeah, and I hope you all know about Rebuild New Hampshire's legislative session on, they're going to do a Zoom plus an in-person thing for legislators on the 30th. If you go to Rebuild New Hampshire, I think you can find it. An email that I sent a couple of days ago has a link in there where you can sign up to be on the Zoom. I don't know what they're preparing for legislators, but I'm hoping that it includes something like this letter. I may work with some folks here. Those of you who are willing to do it, you should just write to me to put together a prospectus that maybe would include that, maybe like a 4 or 5 page thing. I think having that is really good, but it can, you can also well understand that some people would say, well, that's just one guy's opinion. And we have the, you know, American Medical Association, the WHO, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, having
Yeah, but they
a
gave
little
all
bit more
the power to
data.
one guy anyway, and it's Anthony Fauci. So that's just one guy too, and he's been dictating this whole bullshit from the get. So why can't we have another guy?
Oh, I totally agree. I'm just saying it may not be enough. That's all. I also want to just point people to our front page on the website now. It's no longer the petition, but it's the questioning COVID page. It's got a ton of stuff there for you to.
Oh, nice.
You're probably familiar with it all already, but I just I just found a bunch of new stuff on here. For example, a study just published in the Journal of American Medical Association says that about 5.5 million years of life lost for children due to school closures. They relate that to adverse effects on educational attainment, lowering graduation rates, total educational attainment, and then the subsequent loss of income leading to shortened life expectancy. Then, of course, we know, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but the all-cause mortality or the non-COVID mortality around dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes are way up this year compared to previous years. We need to talk about this. There's a bunch of stuff here. There's a group called Collateral Global and Alliance for Natural Health International. You'll see this collateral damage from lockdowns, a link when you go on the front page, and an image. So we need to start talking to people about this. And, you know, the pushback that we had this past week about you're killing grandma, you know, it's like, we have to stop that in its tracks. They're killing grandma by the, obviously, still 80% of people in New Hampshire died in nursing homes, which is, you know, a patently obvious thing. So we need to push back with all the tools at our disposal. And to that end, I do hope to have some version of, yeah, there it is for
Yeah.
Rebuild New Hampshire, right?
Yes, that's, if you go to RiseUpNH.com, that's where you can learn more. I've already reserved my space at this. It's November 30th.
Yep. Yep.
So you want to get in there so you can be, as a Zoom attender, you can be in on that meeting. This is
And we'll definitely, they'll have that recorded. We'll definitely make sure that gets sent out to everyone. Yeah, I will.
They may have a list of local stores as well that are, you know, friendly to our cause. I remember seeing something like that. So there might be a resource there for that. Somebody brought that up earlier.
On their website, you're saying?
I think so. I remember hearing about that. I think it was through their organization that they established an ongoing list of stores in New Hampshire, you know, retailers, groceries, what have you, that have not been. Now, remember, this was prior to the mandate. The bad thing about the mandate is now it empowers everybody. And I think a gentleman made that reference here. You know, the restaurant in Walpole was just waiting for the mandate. So now they can, you know, put down the hammer and, you know, force all those dirty deplorables, you know, out of their establishment that come in, you know, sans mask. JM, did you post that really brilliant article on the COVID cult that you shared with me last few days ago? Because that was one of the more insightful things that I've read. And I think it's an important thing. Anybody here who hasn't read that, I think that's required reading. It's not terribly long.
It's on our blog. It's Death by Lockdown is the blog title. And it's got a link to, it's got the whole, this is Tom Woods. It's got the whole article by Tom. It also has the video is there at the bottom of the page where he talks about
Right.
he shows the thing that I'm sure you all have seen now. I've got a bunch of this also on our front page, but the date of mask mandates and then the progression of, you know, of the disease, so-called,
Right.
and there's just, you know, there's no correlation, and he, you know, it's so clear that anyone who watches that has to just go, you know, man, I should have, you know, I could have had a V8 instead of believe this, you know, believe the stupidity of the mask mandates. So we need to really, I think right now, you know, working with Rebuild New Hampshire, we need to make sure that all of our legislators, and which would be, you know, for most of us, our locals, as well as our state legislators, hear from us constantly that this is not a thing. And we send them all of this stuff, including this excellent letter by Hodkinson, the Roger Hodkinson guy from Alberta. They just need to keep hearing it. We need to just keep sending them the latest data, the latest stuff that we know of, and people will eventually see that, oh, they're talking about something. Because you have to realize, right, the onslaught has just been so monumental that they're going to just dismiss the first few things they hear. So they need to hear it constantly. So I know we're getting to the end of our hour here.
I have to, so Phyllis is asking about Gerhardt's flyer. Can that be provided in a PDF? She's wondering. Can we make that in is it a
Oh, I'm sure we can.
Gerhardt,
I think maybe.
Gerhardt, we can't hear you. Unmute.
Unmute. I have it on a PDF. It's neatly done, and with the picture of him on top, and anyone can print it out. But I'll be happy also if those that want to use Heartmail, the Heart handouts, I will be happy to donate copies if you let me know how many you think you can handle and want to use. But it will be on PDF and sent out to everyone who is on this list here today, so that you can make your own prints and go to your own Staples or whatever. And I believe it's powerful to have a lot of these tools, as John Michael said, not just this one alone, because we do need to break through. Damn it, we have to break through.
Gerhard, I have a suggestion. Everyone meet to sing Christmas carols before Christmas time in downtown Keene. And the best way to deal with the opposition who thinks everyone is extremist is to show, not to say, because people are disregarding any kind of information from extremists. So if you go into the community and sing Christmas carols without a mask, they might consider you as having a sane approach to the problem.
Michael, John Michael.
Or you'll be those crazy carolers, right? Brenda, I do
Yes.
want to mention one thing. Does your son know other students who feel the way he does? Because I think only if students rise up are we going to have some kind of different kind of response. If you had like 100 students rise up, that would make a difference. Or even 50 or even 20.
It's not other kids. The problem is teachers are terrified. They won't teach in the schools. They've shut the schools down. I teach at Franklin Pierce, and I expect that by tomorrow, the administration will approach me to tell me to take off my shield and to wear a mask. And I will have the AFT to support me. But the teachers are not asking. And so the students are afraid because they're told to do what the teachers say. And so this is a problem for students. And all of the teachers at Franklin Pierce are putting, they give me silent pressure to, be more mask, wear my mask, but I'm wearing a shield and I have been since September. So these kids are afraid to speak up. So the answer to your question is this: how will we know if they feel this same way? The parents are telling them not to, the teachers are telling them not to, and they have no safe place to speak.
Well, it starts with one person, and it sounds like your son might be that person. He has legitimate medical reasons and as well as social reasons. And he needs to start talking. I mean, he needs to. I'm not telling him what he should do, but he could start talking to other students and find out if there's some other questioning people. I mean, this is the age to question, isn't it? I mean, like if you're a teenager or early 20s, you're not accepting your parents' point of view on most things if they haven't been totally cowed by the educational system thus far. I would think that some of them are ready to hear something else. Have them share information from our website. Have them send people to our website. The handout from that Gerhardt's preparing. Gerhard, if you'll email that to me, I'll make sure it gets posted on the website, et cetera, et cetera. We just need to start educating people.
If they see Liam singing in Keene, they'll walk by and stand next to him, but they are not going to take that leap and start saying things that their parents don't approve
Well,
of.
we don't know that until we really put it to them yet. But it might take some education, Can
Can I just say something?
I know
Before,
we're at the end of the hour. Anyone else want to have something to say? Dr.
Jean,
Jean, go ahead.
Dr. Jean.
I just want to pipe in here, everything that's been said, obviously, we're all on the same page here. When I think about like what's in front of us, I think of it like, I'm a business owner like many of you. And I think what we need is a marketing campaign. So I think we need to like get organized and say, okay, here's what we're going to do A, we're going to do B, we're going to do C, and just figure out, what's going to be most effective and all the things like you just mentioned. I believe that involving, students and children, I think would be very effective, because everybody has a heart. I don't know how many of the rest of you teared up when I heard his testimony. But I think we really need to get organized around that, like have an organized marketing strategy, because we're in the court of public opinion here, and that's the only thing that's going to get things to shift, because otherwise there is going to be that resistance in school. There's going to be that resistance. Whatever we do, there's going to be all this resistance because people don't have the information. And so I think we have the information. We just need to figure out how we can most effectively get it out there. And I just want to mention also, in addition to Gerhard's flyer, there's some things that come out of Dr. Sears. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Dr. Sears, but they have these sticky notes. They're like 3x5 sticky notes, and they have the 3 main questions about masks, like to question this whole thing. And they're good because you could just stick them up, walk around town and stick them up everywhere, and people are going to pick them up. It's easier than necessarily like trying to put flyers out. I mean, I've done flyers, in coffee shops and stuff, and they're so not effective, but if we can have something that's easy for somebody to just like see it and grab it, and it's very concise. So anyway, I think we can get together on maybe some ideas and approaching it in that manner. I think in a Zoom meeting where we have students participate and we invite the public to participate. I mean, some ideas like that, but I think we do need to be organized about it and come up with a plan.
I have a motion picture company, and if we wanted to shoot like a public service announcement, if someone wanted to contribute and how to organize that and whom to interview, I mean, we can shoot a broadcast quality PSA and, buy some airtime. We could do a radio ad. I mean, what we need to do is, while it's great we're all talking amongst ourselves, we got to start shouting from the rooftops and reach people, whatever platform that is, social media, anything we could do broadcast locally. So I'm happy to look into seeing what it would cost to run local ads, like on a state level or a town level, and I could put together the equipment for it. And, I'd be happy to donate my time to shoot something like that. If someone wants to develop maybe something along the lines of a script and, how an agenda should be, and, do it in like a 30-second spot or what have you.
If Liam and some of his friends would like to participate
Absolutely.
I think that would be really effective. I think
and our 15-year-old son and his friends from his school, they all feel the same way about the masks and everything, and how absurd and ridiculous it is. And none of them are scared of catching anything.
I loved Dr. Jean's idea. Let's get a Zoom meeting together with all the children who are on the same page. Let's work together with them as an empowering group of adults to get them to, I've got some great ideas already, but I think I'd rather have it come from them as to exactly what this was. 30-second, 60-second spot. What are you thinking? Something really brief? Yeah, you're muted.
We could also record that meeting and then splice, these children's testimony and put it into, again, a 30-second spot.
That's true too.
Yeah, we can edit that.
And then send that to people and send that to our, I don't even know what to call them, council people,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, all over the place, basically. Put it on the website, put it on Facebook, put it everywhere. All right, that sounds really good. I know we're coming to the end of the hour, so we're actually beyond that. So let's wrap it up. If anyone has something they feel they really need to say that hasn't been said, let's take the next 30 seconds to hear them. Anyone?
If you do bring in the group of children, which I think is a brilliant idea, it may be advisable to connect with a licensed social worker or a psychologist or somebody that could combat and push against the really vicious accusations that we will have to field by exploiting children, because they're going to call us evil for doing that.
Of course. If anybody knows one of those who are like on our side, you know, do share. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. It feels like we're gaining some momentum, but what's obvious is that we need to be more laser focused on some of what we're trying to do to get to the next place. But good hearing all the sharing and conversation, and just keep at it. Let's do this.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.